Hello again. We have another wonderful interview today with Miss Valerie. Let's just get right into it. Tell us a little about yourself and who you are.
Sure. I'm something of a former, or perhaps once in future, downtown playwright who got into writing musicals around 2019, largely by accident because a play that I was writing decided that it wanted to have songs. And it eventually grew into The Scars of Your Body. It just became more and more voracious in its musical appetites, and turned itself into a full musical, and I kind of went along for the ride, and it's become the major thing that I write these days. Um, a lot of my shows are dark comedies, and that aspect of my craft has stayed the same. I do a lot of work in combining elements of common genres, especially science fiction and dystopian fiction, with a very hyper realistic modern day setting that might involve really like depictions of like educational systems, or depictions of environmental crises, or other types of issues that are very much grounded in our present reality, but that also have some kind of surreal spin on them of one kind or another that heightens it. And I found that adding music to my work really enhances that aspect of it. It suddenly makes the heightened reality and these larger than life elements make more sense, and it really has been a positive direction for my work.
That's awesome. That's very cool. What? Tell us about your show. What is it about? Tell us about your show.
Yeah. Well, The Scars of Your Body is set in a dystopian future in which the earth became uninhabitable, and the human colonists decided to move to Alpha Centauri to escape those environmental problems on Earth. But they discovered that it was inhabited by an existing race of aliens called the Elenarts, who are obsessed with traveling sideshows. And the humans had a very hard time adjusting to life on Alpha Centauri. Things didn't go well. Their farming didn't work out, and so many of them, including our hero, the boy, have been scrounging for employment at these Alanark-run sideshows. And he gets a very highly coveted sideshow boy entry level position, and there he meets the abundantly scarred woman, human, who is one of the exhibits, and they fall in love, and they hatch a plan to run away from the sideshow together to one of the outer moons the Alpha Centauri system. But they have to get away from the Eleanor Barker, who is a force to be reckoned with.
I love everything about I not that I pick favorites among my babies, but this one's one of my favorites. Like it is just so captivating, and that the whole conceit at the top of the show of like he finds a coin and either can like is this bread or sideshow, and he does the sideshow. Like I love that conceit. I think that's just so fun. I love it.
Well, thank you.
Yes, no, yes. Yeah, it's so much fun. What so the next piece or the next question is like you kind of talked about this a little bit in your about you, but why did you write the show? And it also with the festival's kind of thing is untold stories or not typically told stories.
Mhm.
So maybe how it fits into that world as well.
Sure. Um, I'm definitely someone who thinks that when you're writing in science fiction, or other or horror, or whatever genre you're writing in, that it can be a fantastic way to highlight actual problems that we're dealing with in the world today, in ways that make them, in some cases, funny, in some cases, approachable, or in some ways really have an impact on people's perspective of that issue in a way that they understand it better or feel more connected to it on a personal or emotional level. And that's what we were hoping to accomplish with The Scars of Your Body. It's a very funny show. It certainly is a comic project, but it deals with the theme of environmental catastrophe and its aftermath in a way that I hope will drive home for people the need to be conscious about climate change, and to take actual real world steps to prevent this type of future from coming to pass for our actual human family today. And also it deals quite intensively with the with not necessarily income like inequality in per se, but certainly inequality of opportunity and the fact that the choices that we're making today about how we structure our society can have an impact on the life opportunities and the choices that are available to our descendants. And that's something that I wanted to highlight through both the story of the boy and the abundantly scarred woman, that these are our future children. And we want to be aware of making choices today that will enable them to live their own lives to the fullest.
I love that.
Um,
Keep going.
I feel like I might have answered part of your question and not all of it. I think I've
That's
lost track
totally
of what.
fine. Yeah, no, the why you wrote the show, and maybe how you came to the idea would be fascinating to know too. But yes, and I think the untold story piece of it is what you probably answered with the like it being a unique perspective and telling of climate theater and climate conscious theater. Um,
Mhm,
and this like social commentary through the lens of sci-fi, which isn't a typical like musical theater genre. Like it doesn't happen very
mhm.
often. So I think it falls in that category. But how'd you guys come up with the idea for it? Like where did that seed come from?
Oh, sure. The project existed in a draft before Evan actually came on board with it. I've been working on it as a play for quite a while, and then it gradually developed music. Um, it was I developed the original version of the show in an incubator that I was in, with a small theater in New York that did a lot of work with generative prompts. It had a relationship with a visual art gallery in Crown Heights, and we were given a lot of at our meetings. We would all come in and like respond to visual prompts from like artworks in the gallery. We would listen to music and write, and we were supposed to come into this program with no preconceived notion of what we were writing. And so a lot of it just came out of the what's in my head at this point. And this was the program started just a few months after Trump was elected president, and so I had a lot in my head at that point. The notion of toxic masculinity is very present in this play, and it echoes around back and forth as a theme. And I definitely think that there was a relationship there to some of my own reactions to that situation at the time. Um, and I do write quite a lot about teenagers. I work as a private tutor, and I commonly work with students who are right on the cusp of transitioning from high school to college. And I also teach freshman college students. So I've seen both sides of that pivotal age. And I think it's an exciting age for characters because they're going out into the real adult world for the first time, but they still have an innocent mindset of thinking that things should be a certain way, or thinking that their life is going to be perfect, or having a very optimistic outlook on the future. And it doesn't always work out for them, especially in the short term. And I've seen that happen a lot with different students that I've worked with who've had different types of experiences in education that way. And so that was part of the inspiration for the boy. I wanted to make something that I felt that my tutoring clients and my college students would like. It's a show that's very much intended for a youthful audience. I think it's important to try to get people in their late teens and people in their 20s, and certainly also older people, but to write shows that will appeal to the concerns of younger generations and try to maintain or even build that theatrical audience for the future. So it is always, it's often in my mind to try to write shows that will make sense for people my age and younger than I am, and that will like help them to feel more connected to the work that's being done on American stages.
Love that. Love everything about that. I'm an educator. Like I taught 6th through 12th grade theater and all of that. So I feel that on a deep personal level, all of that. Love it. Why, so next question I have for you is why should folks come see a showcase performance, and particularly the portions of your show that we selected?
Sure. I really love the two portions that you guys have selected. The one of the songs that you're doing comes from very early in the show, and it's when the boy is first encountering the world of the sideshow. And that's a terrific way for audiences to get a feel for what the rest of the show will be like. You're gradually introduced to the whole milieu of the sideshow. You get to meet the Barker and see what an unbelievable jerk he is to everyone who he comes in contact with. You get to see the boy's reactions as he's encountering both the glitzy show magic of the sideshow, the costumes and the music and the scenery that he maybe hasn't encountered before. But you also are meeting all of the sideshow exhibits. You're meeting the abundantly scarred woman. You're getting to know a little bit about their background, and that song was particularly hard to write because it's an opening number and there were so many things that we had to do. So having written our way through that beast of a sequence song, I'm particularly excited for audiences to see and hear it, because it was a challenging thing for Evan and I to piece together, and we're very proud of the way that it turned out. And then the title song, "The Scars of Your Body," hits the emotional core of the relationship between the boy and the woman. It's the first point that they come together and declare their love for each other, and it's the very end of the first act. It's a particularly powerful and resonant moment in the show. And it's another song that we're extremely proud of. That's the song that everybody goes away from the show and just remembers and wants to sing in their shower.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how audiences react to that song and to get to share it with a large crowd of people.
Yeah, no, that's I know. It's stunning. And actually our boy and abundantly scarred woman are a couple in real life, which I actually didn't
Oh,
know when I cast, like when I was like, "Hey, why don't we just do this?" And then I found out the other day that they actually are together. I like knew they were close, but I didn't realize they were a couple. And so I was like, "Oh, that makes my heart so happy. I love it." So yeah, they're a real couple in real life, which is sweet. What are the next steps for your show, either or for this show, either in reality or that you want to manifest into the world? What's next?
sure. Well, we have a complete advanced draft of the show, and while we think that it probably like could benefit from a little bit more revision before it enters a production environment, we are trying to get a concert reading or a workshop of it where we can hear the entire show, from beginning to end, with actors and with all of the music being performed live before an audience. And we think that that will help us to see both and where little things need to be tweaked. Whenever you have a musical, especially one that has a lot of music in it, like this one, you have to constantly ask yourself, is it at every moment in the show, is the music serving the storytelling as well as it possibly could be? And we think the answer is generally yes, but we have a feeling that once we go through that rehearsal process, that we're going to find small moments that don't currently have underscoring that should have underscoring, or moments where maybe we need to tighten or adjust the song to make it longer or shorter, or moments that maybe should have a small reprise of a song that don't currently have that. And we're looking to try to make those types of adjustments to it in a rehearsal environment. And we also think that having the whole show in front of a live audience that's not entirely consisting of people that we personally know would be very helpful, because it will help us to see where are people laughing, where are people not laughing, what do we need to change so that they really get what we're going for. So that's what we're looking for, and we've been just continuing to submit it, to places, festivals like your festival. We've been continuing to submit it to theaters in our New York area that do these types of concert readings. We've been having conversations with other artists that do similar work. I'm just, we bang on enough doors, we'll get our concert reading. We feel pretty confident that it will work out sooner or later. But that's what we're trying to make happen next.
I feel that. I feel that. And I see that. And I would agree. I think that's definitely like the next step. I like when I read through it, I was like, that's where this needs to go. Um, and yeah, one of the things that we have started doing with our festival is that after these like showcase performances, we'll basically from the showcase performance talk with authors and talk with our production team about putting up one as a concert reading. We did that last year for extended stay. And it was really, I mean, it was a weird thing because we did it in a mall as a thing with the city, and it was kind of strange. So I think we learned a lot from that. But it was still, I think, really valuable process for the authors, and it was a valuable process for us as actors and performers, and like, anyway. So that's, and then our hope is like as the wheel kind of gets turning, that shows that were featured in the showcase and then go on to get staged readings, like full staged readings. There's a theater in town that is interested in looking at basically the catalog of what we've done in the showcase or done as a staged reading to try and work with authors to do full stage productions of stuff. So that is what we're building towards. We aren't there quite there yet, but that's like what we're building towards because we see that. I mean, that's the reason this festival was started is I wrote a show and I was like, "Hey, I kind of just need to see people do it." And there's lots of places to do stage readings in Colorado, but there is like nobody doing stage music, like stage readings of musicals. And so
Mhm,
that's where this festival came from was a
mhm,
need for works in progress to have a place to be. So
mhm.
yeah. Anyway, that's
Yeah. That's it's very ambitious, and it's also frankly very necessary because there have been a lot of organizations in New York that used to produce concert readings for artists that have
Yeah.
had to basically scale back the number of projects they can do because of budgetary reasons or because they keep losing their space. It's happened to several theaters here recently, unfortunately. So I think more and more there's a huge need for more regional groups to step up and start doing things like this because the New York environment it's no longer it's still doing a lot, but it's no longer capable of actually developing everything that the writers here are building.
Right. Well, and it's yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's like getting another perspective too of like there's other stories being told that don't come out of New York, and that having other places for stuff to flourish, I think is really important. I mean, I have a friend who lived in New York, and she is a cabaret performer, and she was saying like trying to get anything up and going in New York City is just insane. The amount of money you need to rent a theater space for 2 nights is obscene. Like there just isn't enough space, there isn't enough places, there isn't enough room to let new stuff
Mhm.
grow. And so, yeah, let's open it up.
Yeah. And also New York is a specific environment,
Yeah.
and definitely Evan and I are hoping that our show is something that will appeal to audiences outside of the
Yeah.
place that we live, and we love the idea of developing it in other places too and sharing it with a Colorado audience because we want people who are not New Yorkers dwelling in our like the cramped little tower apartments that we all live in, or just that do different things for work that have very different lives that enjoy different hobbies to also connect to the work. And we think that having that perspective is going to be really valuable too.
I would agree. I would agree. And then the next question I've got for you is kind of in the vein of why should a Colorado theater pick up your show and work with you to produce it, either as a staged reading or a fully staged show?
Sure. We really believe in this project, and we think that thematically it has themes that are associated with environmentalism, with toxic masculinity and gender roles, and also just the whole difficulty that people have like growing up and becoming adults in the society that we live in, and it, like are all very resonant to broad audiences, both in Colorado and elsewhere. And the area that you guys live in, there's so much natural beauty in Colorado, especially compared to our little block-sized parks in New York. That I think looking at climate change is something that's going to have an impact on your immediate like reality and the things that you like to do when you go out to hike, or the atmosphere, the air quality, the wildfire smoke that more and more areas have been suffering from. That it's also a relevant topic to explore in an area like the one that you guys are living in too. But we want people also to laugh and to feel joy and to feel emotional connection and emotional release to these characters too. And we want them to engage in the story that we're telling as well as the larger political mission that we have too. And we're trying to build something that will accomplish both of those goals, that will be something people can go to and say, I feel satisfied from having witness the life experience, the lived experience of these real people in this futuristic like setting that's completely different from my own, while also maybe thinking about some of these topics from a different angle.
For sure. Awesome. My computer's on the verge of death, so I'm going to say that this was wonderful, and I'm so glad I got to talk with you. Thank you so much. And that was basically the last question anyway. But thank you so much for sharing your work and sharing your time with us. Excited to see a chunk of it up next week.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye, Kelly.
Bye.